وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا واحلل لنا عقدة من ألسنتنا يفقهوا قولنا. رب ادخلنا مدخل صدق وأخرجنا مخرج صدق واجعلنا من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, may the peace and blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal be upon His final messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon his family and all those who follow in his footsteps. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khair for being here again. My second week of the iPhone, I told you last week I was quite excited. So I'm usually scrambling to find, mushaf here or reference there, prior to my lecture, when something pops in my mind that I need to look up. And even when I have this, I'm still thinking, where can I find a mushaf? And suddenly, inspiration comes to me. I have the iPhone. So it really felt good that I'm seeing these applications delivering their intended fruits. So, having talked about the iPhone, inshallah we move on to something, inshallah, that hopefully can inspire our hearts, inshallah, and infuse us with a greater level of iman as we reflect upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in what is the third session, inshallah. Just a quick review for those of us who are here or were not here. It's been 2 weeks, so it's definitely worthwhile to just highlight some of the major things that we have spoken about. In the last session, we essentially covered the life of the Prophet ﷺ from his birth up until the point where he got married to Khadija, and even addressed certain aspects of their marriage, though not in great detail. But I want to, before proceeding into the next stage, or the next chapter that we want to focus on, I want to summarize a few critical points that I want all of you to be aware of as we get into the next topic. Remember the Prophet ﷺ when we've spoken about the fact that he was an orphan. SubhanAllah, I was giving I'm giving this series at another masjid, and SubhanAllah, I spoke a lot about the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was orphan. And little did I know that, after the lecture, somebody comes up to me, and SubhanAllah, like with tears in his eyes, and thanking me profusely for having spoken at length about the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was an orphan, and what that entailed as well. Because, as I said to you before, when we covered the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we covered it as essentially just a collection of facts, information. It's very academic. We don't relate to the Prophet ﷺ at a personal level. And our objective is to understand the Prophet ﷺ as a messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal, chosen, commissioned by Allah, but also as a model, as a human being that we all can relate to. If we're not able to relate to the Prophet ﷺ, he cannot be a model. Otherwise, he's this abstraction, right? Somebody that we think of as being so exalted we can never relate to. Yet when you look at the details of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you realize his incredible humanity. Not only this, but also that the circumstances and the conditions that he has gone through are our circumstances and conditions. It's incredible. So this man comes up to me, just reflecting and talking to me about how the notion of the Prophet ﷺ being an orphan, and as I said, we've actually covered the implications of that, the emotions of being an orphan, how the Prophet ﷺ was never able to hug a father. Imagine, he was born into a reality where there was no father. And you've hugged your fathers, you know what that means. And not having that in your life, what it could mean as well. People are literally devastated psychologically when there is one parent missing, let alone two parents in their lives, regardless of who ends up raising them. It leaves a hole in the soul and in the mind and in the emotions of the person. And for some, it can devastate them for the rest of their lives. With the Prophet ﷺ, none of that happened. SubhanAllah. If anything, he was able to give out of his heart and out of his soul more than anybody else. SubhanAllah. So this man mentioned to me specifically that he has, and he pointed to 2 kids that he had with him, around 15 years of age, and he said both of them are orphans. Essentially, I took care of them, and I adopted them essentially months after they were born. And he said, I never was able to think or never thought of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ was an orphan. And he related to just that element in the entire talk and just focused on it. It meant the world to him. That's precisely, dear brothers and sisters, what we're trying to do. Relate to this man, to this Prophet ﷺ, so that we can nurture that love. So that we understand that now we really need to follow him. But it's founded upon an emotion of attachment to this man that all of us can relate to. And as we continue this series, you're going to come across many, many more episodes within the life of the Prophet ﷺ that illustrate this point. The humanity, the compassion, the mercy of this man, and how close he is to each and every one of us. We've spoken also about the fact that he had to actually move through several homes. Think as well about the impact of that on a human being growing up. Having to move through 5 homes. Transitioning from one home to another. And how that can literally destabilize a human being, but yet with the Prophet ﷺ having endured all of these hardships at a young age would still grow up to be a very mature, stable, healthy human being who can give so much, as I said, out of his heart and soul. We've spoken about the fact that his uncle would have him start working as a shepherd initially, and then he would become a person who took care of trade caravans. SubhanAllah. And I wanted you to focus last time on what? The fact that, think of what Allah was doing with him. He's putting him through what? Incredible experiences. Did you notice? He wasn't just a man idling, sitting at home, hey, my uncle, take care of me. No, from the age of 8, he was working. So he was grew up as an orphan, moved through several homes, was taking care of someone who was not his mother for the first 2 years, then went back to his mother, then his grandfather took care of him after she dies, then his uncle, then he starts to work at the age of 8 as a shepherd, taking care of sheep, outside of the city, for several years, and then transitioned into something much tougher, in a sense, where he needed to interact with people. Not only the Meccans, though. When you are managing caravans, who do you come across? People of different ethnicities, different faiths, religions. People of various, essentially, temperaments. And for those of us who've worked, in a business or know what business is all about, it's a very tough field. You really discover the true colors of people and you see what they really are about. SubhanAllah, as if Allah is doing what? This exposure is a preparation for the Prophet ﷺ. Why is that? Why did he need to come across different ethnicities and faiths and people? Young and old, male and female, various backgrounds, from Syria to Yemen to the Romans to as I said, Christians and Jews and Muslims. Why is that? What do you think? This man was going to receive what? 2.5 decades later. A message that was going to be sent for who? Humankind. This man was going to be the messenger of Allah on earth, delivering to all of humankind. So how can he deliver to all of humankind if he's not able to understand humankind and their temperaments and their backgrounds, and having come across them and dealt with them? Because carrying a message, dear brothers and sisters, once again, we speak about it as this kind of event, but little attention do we pay to how hard it must have been. He had to deal with human beings who were really rough. I'm sure you've come across people in your life, within your family, circle of friends, community, just having a basic conversation to convince them of something simple, trivial, and it turns into perhaps a heated argument, and it can upset you for days, wouldn't it? How can that person not listen? Why are they so stubborn? Imagine now that this person not only rebuffs you or kind of essentially rejects what you're saying and refuses to believe it, but now starts cursing at you. Taking it to another level, starts actually calling you names and spreading rumors about you. Imagine that feeling of hurt that you'll have. Brothers and sisters, we know quite well we lose sleep when somebody hurts us a tiny bit. Imagine now the Prophet ﷺ having to come across humanity, people from all walks of life, in the city and beyond when he received the message. The point is that he had to be prepared for this through a variety of experiences. We've spoken about his financial condition. Another thing that we can all relate to. Most of us, I'm sure probably all of us here, right? He was poor. Though he came into an aristocratic family, he was born into an aristocratic family, but it was a poor branch of Quraysh, very poor. So he didn't have the means. He was a poor young man and grew up to be really, not having the means. SubhanAllah. How many of us think of that? SubhanAllah. The Prophet ﷺ clearly never asked for wealth or anything, but he really didn't even have it to begin with. So that, SubhanAllah, put him in a condition where he can relate to who? Those in need. He felt their emotion. He understood what they had gone through. If he was rich, how would he identify with that? So SubhanAllah, Allah put him in an aristocratic family so that nobody would bash him and say, he came from a very underprivileged family. He's unworthy of being listened to. That's why he was brought into an aristocratic family. SubhanAllah, look at the wisdom of Allah. How Allah arranges his circumstances, not only of his life, but all of our lives, for a specific purpose. For you to fulfill a mission in your life. But we don't understand. We complain about it. So easily we could have said, if we're in his shoes, I'm in an aristocratic family, good, but why are we so poor? How come the rest of the family is really wealthy? And you start complaining, as if it somehow is stripping you of what? Of your capacity to fulfill your mission in life. The Prophet ﷺ never complained about it. But nonetheless, he understood what it meant to be poor. He participated in society around him. SubhanAllah, he was never someone growing up before the message who just sat in seclusion and said, I don't want to talk to anybody. Allah gave him this impulse, the desire to be with people. Once again, a critical element for a Muslim. It was all said in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, SubhanAllah, even before the message came to him. A key distinctive feature of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and I really want you to pay attention to this. We know it all, but it's so critical. He did not read or write. Think about this. And we'll see the wisdom of this later, inshallah, today. He was never seen delivering talks. Normally somebody who is going to become, at some point, a messenger. You would expect that before that, what would they be doing? Talking about theories, ethics, right? Addressing morality in society, an orator, right? A teacher. Was he that? Was he known for public speaking? Was he known for proclaiming things and reciting, quote unquote, in public? Was he? He was never seen doing that. Do you know this? Do you know this? He was not. Nonetheless, he was known for what? Incredible character. How did people know this? Was it from his talks? They actually dealt with him one-on-one. So this man was so incredible in his character, this is unusual. Every single time somebody spoke with him, Muhammad spoke the truth. Somebody entrusted him with something, he kept the trust. When he was asked for counsel and advice, he would give it from his heart and soul, and it's all wise. Imagine at young age, to the point where his reputation spread in Mecca. This is the man. He becomes known as what? As-Sadiq al-Amin. Imagine your brothers and sisters being granted a title by people because they've loved this man so much. People, brothers and sisters, are naturally attracted to people who have good characters. Automatically. You know who put that in our hearts and souls? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah makes you and me love good people. So as much as many people are bad, even in their hearts, they probably like good people. This is a natural inclination of human beings. Unless we corrupt our souls. When we corrupt the soul, not only do we become bad, but we start liking bad things and bad people. Seriously. SubhanAllah, your inclinations and instincts become corrupted. That's a bad thing. You know when somebody messes an electronic device that no longer functions? We no longer function when we corrupt our souls. Stripped of its faith. It has no compass. Even the desires and the feelings become messed up. That's a problem. Because Allah put in you the right buttons. He placed within us the seeds, the inclinations to take us in the right direction, the right fitrah. It's a fitrah. Naturally, you're drawn to goodness. So people automatically love the Prophet ﷺ. SubhanAllah. I ask you, dear brothers and sisters, why? How many of us feel that Allah blessed us with good things within our personalities or characters? That, I'm not talking about Islamic preaching. That really makes people drawn to us. Makes people gravitate towards us. It's a critical thing. Wallahi, it saddens me that as much as we speak of character, we struggle with changing one habit. We really struggle. We're oftentimes we don't even ask ourselves, am I working on anything within my personality or character? On how I feel? Is it changeable? Of course it is. Because many people believe that, no, it's hard, that's how I am. Well, if that was the case, then why did Allah send the Prophet ﷺ to be a model for us to follow and told us change? Because change is possible. That's the incredible thing that lies within us, the capacity to change. Those who wills it and have the courage, you're not on your own. Allah will facilitate the change. But He wants action. Theorizing about these things is not good enough. It fades away. It's an abstraction. But once you have the will, I am not happy with how I talk. I'm not happy with my expressions. I feel like I don't give enough. I feel that I don't listen enough. I feel like I don't empathize. I don't feel like, I don't have that, I have a harshness in my heart. How many of us ask genuine questions, but don't fool ourselves? Because a lot of us will think, well, oh, who's better than me? That whenever we have a problem, it's somebody else's fault, not us, right? How often do we think that way? All the time. We blame others. Somehow we're justified in how we think and how we perceive and how we talk to others. When we talk down to them, they deserve it because they did so and so. And suddenly suspend all the good things that make us worthy of being called a person of good character. Remember, brothers and sisters, good qualities, all of them require patience. If it was easy to be forgiving, then everybody would forgive. But it's precisely because it's difficult that forgiving people are exalted. Does that make sense? I mean, if it's easy for me again to say, even I'm sorry, even if I'm not at fault, that's not an easy thing to do. But that's precisely why it's an exalted quality. Courage is an exalted quality. Compassion, when it's hard to give compassion, when somebody is being harsh with you and you're still being kind to them, is a very difficult thing to do. It requires patience. It requires somebody wanting to, subhanAllah, strive for something better within their souls. They're the beneficiaries. Not easy. But subhanAllah, brothers and sisters, that's why the class of people who have good character, Allah turns them, subhanAllah, into receptacles of His light on this earth. Light that people gravitate towards. SubhanAllah, Allah walks them on this earth, moves them. And it's through their souls and their hearts, decide it's like a tree. People just love to look at, love to come towards. And the Prophet ﷺ was built like this, SubhanAllah, prepared like that before the message came to him. Indeed, it was a preparation by Allah Azza wa Jalla. He would marry, as we covered last time, Khadija. SubhanAllah, 15 years older than him. And we know that Khadija was belonged to a prestigious family as well. She was wealthy. She was beautiful. She was what? Men sought that woman. She was widowed. Nonetheless, wealthy men, powerful men, Mecca wanted to marry her because she was such an incredible woman. Of class, of status, of wealth, of beauty. She had it all. But what did she do? Look again at who Allah ends up uniting the Prophet ﷺ with as a spouse. The best of people, the best of women. She did not want them. She was not impressed. Look again at a good soul that understands what a good man is. She was not impressed by all the appearances and the status and the power and the wealth. She didn't care. Isn't that amazing? Look at how much we're caught up with appearances nowadays and superficial considerations. Not that, for example, don't misinterpret this. Education is important. It doesn't mean you settle for somebody who doesn't have anything. That doesn't mean this. But it means, is that the thing that is driving your decision? Is it? Look at the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't have anything. Yet Khadija was so impressed with what? Again, his truthfulness. She tested him in the caravans, right? She was impressed with how good of a man he is. Tough man. Patient man. Honest man. Who also was very serious about his work. He was so professional. She was so impressed by this, and she grew to to be more and more impressed as the months went by. That she as a woman wished to have somebody like him as a husband. 15 years younger than her. Imagine this, 15 years younger than her. Another thing that we often frown upon, that, how would a woman older than a man, is it appropriate to man? Look at these cultural, essentially, criteria that we set. That where do they come from? How come they're the ones that dictate our decisions, right? Are they Islamic in any way? How many of us ask these questions? Where do we get them from? And why do we assume that they're true and unquestionable? I mean, you come across these conversations, and I love these conversations with brothers, when we talk about, for example, marriage. And you hear the most fascinating things, and some of them don't know any better. But I've heard from my brothers, just automatically, the woman has to be this many years younger than me, and he named them for me. I'm like, how did you come across that formula? I mean, really, I just would like for you, that's okay, younger is fine. But tell me exactly, how did you come across that number? And so Allah actually gave me an explanation, too. So he was ready, Now by that age, I want her to be that age. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not a good thing. And alhamdulillah, as I said, there's nothing haram to say, I want to marry somebody. I'm not saying that. Bear that in mind. But I'm just saying, where do we get all of these things from? SubhanAllah. You notice that all of them are really cultural or because of certain desires that we have. But I want you to really look at where happiness happened in that marriage. Had nothing to do with age. Had nothing to do with wealth. She married him even though he was what? Poor. But he was had incredible character and he had the capacity to earn. 15 younger than her, and he accepted as well. SubhanAllah. He was looking for a good woman as well. He accepted, embraced the marriage. And we know what their marriage ends up being. We'll, inshallah, cover or dedicate one session, inshallah, hopefully, for their marriage. There's to talk about the signs of a good marriage. How did they live together as husband and wife? What was special about their marriage? Look at, even as we said last time, the legacy. SubhanAllah, was an amazing thing, the legacy. How he still remembers her and is fond of her and her friends after her death. Talk about a loyal man, right? SubhanAllah. She loved him dearly, as we will see today. Loved him dearly. She wanted to be with the Prophet ﷺ, SubhanAllah, join him, support him, be there for him. Amazing woman. Today, dear brothers and sisters, we pick up, having gone over that, as I said, reviewed that part of his life. He has now acquired all these experiences into his marriage, into his 30s, and we're not going to go over all the details. This is not meant to be a detailed recitation of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. He would acquire these experiences. Who's, again, facilitating this? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Remember this. His character has manifested. His manhood, his maturity, his nobility, his qualities have manifested. What was he being set for? An incredible message. An incredible mission. Coming to him from where? Notice, when you have a job, we have a project for you, or somebody's going to give you something, but wait for them, they're going to come to you in a week. Perhaps they're coming from another state to explain to you what they need you to do. This man was about to receive a mission, project, delivered to him from where? The heavens. Imagine. I mean, imagine, did he know this? He had no idea. Just think of the enormity of what was about to happen to the Prophet ﷺ. And not only is he going to receive this thing called a message for all of humanity coming to you from the heavens, but this message was going to be for eternity, till the end of time. So it's not a temporary type of mission. This is a mission of delivering the message of Allah to humanity until the end of time. Imagine all of this was waiting for the Prophet ﷺ and he had no idea. Allah tells us in the Quran, just to illustrate to you, because another thing that we don't think much about. So it's a great message, it's coming from the heavens, it sounds like something enormous. But what about the actual Quran? The Quran itself, its verses coming into his heart, did that require preparation? Because we read it, is it a big deal to read the Quran, by the way? We read it. Not, if you're agreeing, or shake your head if you're not agreeing. Is it hard to read the Quran? If you read Arabic. Is it? No, it's not. So what's the big deal about it? So I'm asking, so what's the big deal? Brothers and sisters, it is a big deal. Because it's not a mere reading of the Quran. It's the absorption of what it meant. The Quran, brothers and sisters, is not just a superficial layer. SubhanAllah, it's a wealth. It's an infinite treasure of meanings. Simple yet complex. It speaks to people's intelligence. It has signs within it that essentially explain the universe. These are the divine words of Allah. So Allah says in the Quran, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. He says, you think this is trivial? Here's what happens. If we were to reveal this Quran, this is Allah saying this. If we would understand. If we were to reveal this Quran with its content, with its message, with what it says, with its signs, upon a mountain, the greatest thing that we witness around us on earth. That's why, by the way, mountains are mentioned frequently in the Quran. Not only this verse, but also even as one of the things that changes on the Day of Judgment. And Allah mentions it to us in the Quran. You look at the mountains in the Day of Judgment. Remember, He brought up the example of a mountain. And He says, you look at the mountain, they look at the mountains and they think it's fixed. But it's not fixed, and it's passing by like clouds. Imagine that day, mountains, Himalayas, passing by like clouds, because they're the greatest thing on earth. So Allah says the greatest, most stable thing on earth that cannot shake, not only will it shake and crumble, it will be moving like clouds. So similarly here, He tells us this greatest thing that is so incredibly stable, doesn't move. If we're to descend, to reveal this Quran upon it, it would be humbled and it would be split asunder. It would crack completely. But we do not comprehend. So think about it now. If a mountain is going to crumble, the heart of one man called Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's going to handle it. And it's not a mere reading. For this heart to contain the meaning of the Quran, the treasure, the light of the Quran. Because he had to do what? How can you deliver the Quran if you don't understand it? Can you? If I give you a physics book right now, put the Quran aside. I'm going to give you, I don't know, modern physics. How many people took physics through here? Nobody took, you took physics through, alhamdulillah. So the rest did not. So how about the sound of theory of relativity and all the fun stuff about quantum mechanics and so forth? I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to start receiving this, and within a week I want you to start teaching. What will you say? You've gone mad, Tarif. Sorry, I'm not interested. It's a work of a human being. Isn't it true? But I'm not ready for this. I need several years of preparation to receive, to understand, to start. Because I can read it. Remember, you can read a book of physics, can't you? You can. I can read Newton's law. I may not understand what F means, or M, or A, or this, or that, but I can read it. Similar to the Quran. So we can read the text, but are we grasping it in its full? It doesn't even have full. Its scope is infinite. But the Prophet ﷺ had to acquire enough understanding, absorption of the light of that message, because he had to do what? What? Complete the sentence. He had to do what? Teach it. Imagine now that he was about to receive the news that he had to deliver them. Remember what you reacted with when I told you physics book? It's not a physics book. This is a Quran. Divine words of Allah that could crumble a mountain. So his heart had to become as a mountain or more. What do you think? More. The mountain crumbled. You see what I'm talking about now? What am I talking about all of this? To tell you the type of preparation, spiritual, emotional, heart preparation that Allah had to put him through to receive the light of the Quran. And we'll talk a lot about the preparation, the continuous preparation that not only happens before the revelation, but also after the revelation. The Prophet ﷺ was given a prescription to continually nurture his heart and soul, to sustain him as he continued to receive. Otherwise, he would not have been able to deliver this message, absorb it, understand it, grasp it. Because, brothers and sisters, you know when you teach, when do you teach the material that you're assigned better? What do you think? So I have material that I need to teach. What's the best way for you to deliver that material? I mean, not in terms of presentation. Under what condition? Perhaps my question is big. What I'm trying to say is that when you really understand it, you teach it well, much better. When your understanding is shaky, it's not as bad. When you really love it, oh, the passion will come out. Does that make sense? So the Prophet ﷺ had to not only understand, grasp, but love and absorb and be completely absorbed in it. That's the type of preparation we're talking about. So he's being prepared. One of the things, now we're talking the last 3 years. He's now 37, 38. Look at what Allah instills in him. This is an extraordinary thing. Because he has no idea. Allah Azza wa Jalla, brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, moves the hearts. Moves your hearts without you knowing. He started moving his heart to something else. He placed within it a seed. To love something. Who knows what it was? In the last 3 years. He started doing something he was not doing before. What did he start doing? Regularly. What is it? The game, exactly. Well, why did he do that? Allah placed within him this desire to take himself away from the city and the distractions of the city. He started loving to be in seclusion. Not for the sake of seclusion, but to contemplate. The desire to sit and reflect upon things around him. He had no idea. SubhanAllah. But he was not satisfied with what he was seeing. The polytheism of Mecca made no sense to him. The ill practices of Mecca made no sense to him. The social disorder made no sense to him. He could not. He was so discontent and unhappy with it. It made no sense to him. He had to go out and, subhanAllah, reflect and think about the meaning of everything, meaning of existence, the meaning of his life. So Allah placed that in him, and he started searching for a cave, subhanAllah, in the mountains of Mecca. Who's been to Mecca here? Okay. Now I've been to Mecca several times, but I have not visited the cave. But it's 3 miles from Mecca, I think, 2 or 3 miles. And you know how high it is on the mountain? It takes an hour and a half to climb. I didn't have time. I wanted to do it, but I had no time. It was in Hajj, so it was impossible to do. But those who have done it tell me stories about getting up to that place. So tough to get to it. And he would go up. Imagine him just, again, put yourself in the feet of the Prophet and just go into search. Look at what he was thinking about. Think of his heart, trying to find this right location where he can settle and just have that sense of tranquility. And he would look and look and look until he finds that tiny space. You know how tiny it is? Barely fits a person. So tiny. It's not like this glamorous cave, by the way. It's not. It's a very tiny space. When you look at it, you think, is that it? That's what he was? Yes. And it's not like after he has been, he spent a night or two thinking, you know what? Let me go find somewhere else. This is not very comfortable. SubhanAllah. That became the place. And he would start now exercising or engaging in these spiritual retreats. Who drew him to it? Once again, I want you to keep remembering this. Allah. Who draws the heart of a person to be in this room? Allah. Who draws the heart of a person to go stand up and say Allahu Akbar and pray? Allah. Who would desire to learn? Allah. Put the desire for someone to learn? Allah. Who would put the desire for someone to walk to the masjid? Allah Azza wa Jal. Who put the desire of a person to even smile and laugh? Allah. To frown? Allah. Completely moving the heart. And He puts these desires in us. SubhanAllah. He similarly did that with him to prepare him for what? For the mission. So what was critical in this preparation? Spiritual preparation, brothers and sisters. Reflection and contemplation is so critical in Islam. It's an unfortunate thing that it has become the forgotten one. Activity of worship. It's actually considered an activity of worship. I want to ask you, in all honesty, SubhanAllah, how many of us really spend in dhikr just to sit by ourselves? A few minutes a day. You don't have to raise your hands. But this is a question for you. To really think about life, where you came from, where you're going, and Allah and your relationship with Him. Not the quick, just, the typical dhikr that we make. The dhikr, the multi-processing dhikr, where you're doing the dhikr and talking and watching television, and answering perhaps a phone, and looking at something else, and perhaps having another conversation, or listening onto the other conversation, and interrupting when appropriate to give your 2 cents as well, and then returning back to the dhikr. That's not the type of dhikr or contemplation that we're talking about. One-on-one with Allah. No distractions. To reflect. You cannot engage in reflection And this is a big topic, by the way. I wish we had more time for it, because I'm telling you, for spiritual development, for building iman, it's hard to build iman if you're constantly absorbed in the distractions of your life. Even your salah will suffer. There's not a doubt about it. And it's also not going to be built if contemplation and reflection is a secondary thing you do occasionally. Just as we do with most things, right? Quran, when I get to it, I'll read. Brothers and sisters, stuff that works out. So how much do you need to work out? Seriously. Regularly, tell us the truth. Seriously. I mean, seriously, to maintain physical fitness. You got to keep up with it. Otherwise, what happens? You lose it. Ask any brother who works out. You lose it right away. Somehow, we understand the physical nature of ourselves. Muscles, I need to continue to work on it for the muscles to grow and stay there. If you leave it for a few weeks, it fades. You can regain it, but it's gonna go. It's gonna shrink. Diet. Ask anybody who's gone on a diet, right? You do it for. Everybody's excited the first 2 or 3 weeks. This South Beach diet. I've heard them all. All kinds of diet, right? The excitement, the rigor, and excited they lose the 20, 30 pounds, and then a month later, oh, that ice cream looks so good. And ice cream suddenly gets reintroduced into your life, and what happens? You gain it all back. You felt good for a month. What do you notice? Regularity is critical. Somehow, we apply this to everything physical in our lives. Our stomachs, our bodies, right? Even studying. You know very well, you're not going to be able to succeed if you don't continuously study. But somehow we treat our hearts and souls differently. Isn't that true? The formula is the same. For the heart and soul to be continually nurtured with iman and sweetness, and feeling that it's faith in Allah Azza wa Jal, and feeling strong, you need to continuously nourish your soul. I'm not talking once a week. I'm talking daily. And that's not going to happen by you just walking, as I said, in the midst of the distractions, like just jumping into a prayer and thinking that's going to do it for me. Because you have not really done what it takes to really get into a state of focus. SubhanAllah, this is so critical. And we will talk, inshallah, more and more, not only today, but in the upcoming episodes about how to do this. But it's not complicated at all. So for now, set aside just a few minutes every day. Perhaps it's Fajr. Like for me, I love Fajr. Yes, it's something magical about Fajr. But don't rush. Spend your prayer, spend afterwards, after your prayer, 10-15 minutes with Allah. Think, reflect. Think of the words of the remembrance that you say. Think about your day. Think about where you're going. Evaluate yourself. But let your heart settle. You'll see wonders happening in your life. Take the Quran and really sit with the Quran. Not just as a quick reading, but to sit with the Quran. To say, Ya Allah, open my heart to it. Look at a verse and reflect on it. If you have not done that before, force yourself. Let me go pick up a tafsir. And really engage my mind with it. Perhaps my mind has never done this. But you know what? It's a worthwhile experience. And you'll discover amazing things about yourself. And Allah will start opening new realms for you. He'll move your heart. He'll nurture your heart. So the Prophet ﷺ, brothers and sisters, was being prepared like that by Allah Azza wa Jal. Imagine, his heart had to be ready. Allah put him through that exercise for that heart to become what? Ready to receive what? The Quran. So Allah Azza wa Jal is already showing us that formula. Now, a question that comes up here is, does that mean we seclude ourselves? So the Prophet ﷺ, you see, he had to go worship. He left the city. That actually question comes up a lot. Do you know this? Some people derive from this experience that, you know what, then we should seclude ourselves. What are your thoughts on this? Anybody would love to share a thought or two? Do you derive that from what I said? Go ahead, please.
I mean, from that, you can look at it. He used that time to get himself ready, but after he was ready and he had the message, he didn't stay and sit. He went and he shared what he learned with the people.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Don't be shy.
Well, as I was saying, I think Islam is a religion about community. So it's very important that even after you may have personally feel like you've gained a certain status, that doesn't mean, you there's any rank of order. It's all about teaching what you know and helping others grow.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Go ahead, please.
There is also some people who would like just sit and pray and just never have enough. You know, they just
They never have enough of
they
what?
just never have enough of like worshiping Allah. Or
Yeah.
I think Islam is a deen of moderation. So I think, you know, there are times where you should, you know, have your private ibadah and seclude yourself and really feel connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then there's times where, you know, you get that deen and that worship and that high iman and then you share it with others. You know, and I think the Prophet ﷺ did that.
Jazakumullah khair. Excellent points. Excellent points. It's, you know, it's a comprehensive whole. And both need each other. We cannot seclude ourselves. That's the definition of Muslim. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith that those who interact with people, and we understand why we need to. I mean, the message cannot be delivered if you don't communicate and interact. It's as simple as that. Might as well just go live in a cave and stay there. Allah created us to be social human beings. To interact, to impact, to empower. Prophets have to do that. That's the definition of a message of da'wah, a mission of da'wah. That you have to interact with those who don't share with you your understanding. It's actually a very tough experience. The Prophet ﷺ says that those who mix with people and are patient with what? The harm that comes from them are better than who? Those who don't mix and receive no harm. Because that is a struggle. And we're here on earth to struggle. And the greater the struggle that you engage in for the sake of Allah, the greater your reward. And Allah starts, subhanAllah, doing His wonders with you when you start doing this for His sake, though. So the seclusion that we're talking about, dear brothers and sisters, is nothing but an exercise that we need to also engage in to build the heart and soul so that it's able to do what? The public work, or the work with our families, or friends, and so forth. If you completely immerse yourself, I'm going to keep doing da'wah, 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 and you're not going back into your private space with Allah and sustaining this, what happens? You start losing your aim, your purpose, iman dwindles. You know where that is? It's in the Quran. That was the message of Allah to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, you know, we read in the Quran, "Inna anzalnahu fi excuse me, alam nashrah laka sadrak," Surah Al-Sharh. Allah tells the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Have we not expanded your chest?" Meaning, expanded it to understand, to grasp, as it applies to the Quran and other things as well. He's the one who really lifted that constriction and allowed this chest to understand and absorb. When something is not understandable to you, by the way, you feel what? How do you feel? It feels tight, doesn't it? So who allowed them to understand? Who expanded that chest and heart? Allah. And we've made it, we've removed the burden for you until the end of the surah. So Allah is telling him here, you know, in the surah about, you know, the fact that there is, with every difficulty there is ease, that we've expanded your chest, that we have blessed you, we've elevated your mention. But what does he tell him at the end? When you're done with your work, what did he tell him to do? Go back and strive towards Allah. Critical, brothers and sisters. This is the formula of our existence. You're done with your work, you come back home, you're tired of, I don't know, I've done a talk today, we've done this project, we finished with our empowerment event yesterday, somebody might have come and disrupted the thing or whatever, and you feel like worked up and you can't even sleep. Something is missing. What does Allah say? He says it to the Prophet, when you get back, now continue to strive, because the heart and the soul cannot sustain itself without that food from Allah and the nourishment. And Allah, brothers and sisters, this is actually for me very personal, because I've actually gone through experiences like this, where I would come, for example, home tired or whatever, and I would not think that I needed Allah now to continue to give me so that I can do any work. Until I came across the surah and understood it through the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. I was like, how I get it. You need Allah. You need Allah daily, one-on-one, to derive that spiritual light so that the heart grows, becomes energetic enough, understands, and also stays what? Steadfast and with the right intention. Because you can easily lose your intention. It's only by going back to Allah continuously to take from His life that you can get out with extra energy and purpose. Try it. Try it every day. Set aside that time. Go back home and have that prayer with Allah. The Quran on a daily basis. The dhikr on a daily basis. And wallahi, brothers and sisters, you really will see transformation in everything that you do. That's as far as tafakkur, reflection. And as I said, we'll talk more about it inshallah. It's a critical dimension of our ibadah. We've neglected it. It really is time for us to get back to tafakkur, to reflection, to thinking. Allah talks in the Quran about people who think. How can you call yourself a people of thought and intellect if you're not engaged in a minimal level of reflection upon the signs of Allah Azza wa Jalla? And the more you engage in them, the more that Allah unravels His signs for you. It's an amazing thing. It's that you start seeing extra things you've never seen before in the meaning of things around you. You start looking at a tree and you probably start looking at it in an entirely different fashion than ever before. Perhaps it's just something with green things on it and a trunk for somebody else. But for you, it's something that inspires a lot more than that. And then as you engage more, you start seeing greater dimensions of that tree that you never thought about before. Infinite meanings. Every sign of Allah has infinite meanings. But He exposes you to them to the level of what? Your effort, your striving, and perhaps how much you want. If you want little, Allah will give you little. If you want Allah, get ready. SubhanAllah. Something else that the Prophet ﷺ had to experience, or was experiencing. So in the last 3 years, Allah engaged in that to prepare the heart. But subhanAllah, now we're coming towards the last period. Something amazing started to happen. I mean, I want you to really put yourself in the shoes of the Prophet ﷺ. Here comes the last few months. Jibreel is not there, the Prophet ﷺ has no idea. He's still going on in his ghar. And by the way, we used to go to him sometimes to the cave with him. Who used to go? His wife. Amazing. She wouldn't spend the 9-10 days that he used to spend, but she would at least go a couple of days with him. Do you know this? How many spouses would say, where are you going again? Ghar Hira, up there. She was older than him too. Imagine she was in her 50s, brothers and sisters. 50s. I mean, when he received the message, he was 40. She was what? 55. She's climbing up the mountain for who? For who? For her husband. She loved him enough, cared about him enough. She wanted to support him in whatever he was doing. I want to be there with you. I want to maintain that connection. Even if it's up there in a mountain, an hour and a half, I'm going to climb with you. To be there for you. What do you think that meant to the Prophet ﷺ? Imagine him just seeing that wife with him. Not questioning him. It's like, oh my God, can you go make us some money? You know, we have needs, we have this, and caravans going on, and we have children, and you're telling me you're going to go up to Ghar Hira, right? And not only for it, he doesn't go a day. Bear that in mind. 10 days at a time. Frequently. It doesn't mean he was neglecting his family though. Remember, he was being prepared by Allah. She somehow understood and never questioned that. Allah was also preparing her, dear brothers and sisters, with the right emotions and understanding, a great heart of a wife. SubhanAllah, an incredible wife would go with him and support him on that. And imagine now the emotional connections being built further between them. In the last few months now, something amazing happens. Allah now is not going to be, preparation is already complete. But now, certain cues start happening. And I want you to imagine, the Prophet ﷺ would be walking in Mecca, suddenly, imagine, just walking about his life and his business. He would start hearing a voice that says, Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah. Greetings to you of peace, O Prophet of Allah. Imagine Prophet just walking, Assalamu alaykum ya Rasulullah. And he would hear it. And imagine him just looking around. And what was going on in his mind? Like, did I just hear that? Did it happen once? Frequently. Really, I mean, a person might go mad. It's like, am I hearing voices? What's happening with me? I swear I heard this. There's no one around me. But I heard somebody telling me, greetings to you, O Prophet of Allah. He would start hearing those things. Later, after he received the message, we would discover from the Prophet that other things were greeting him. He says after the message, by Allah, I know a stone in Mecca, that whenever I used to go past it, it would greet me. Say Assalamu alaikum. So not only did he hear that voice, he actually used to come across a stone and the stone would say Assalamu alaikum. Imagine what he would think about. He didn't tell anyone. And you can just imagine what has gone on in his mind, the confusion, the thinking, the wondering of what does that mean? How can that happen? An object just spoke with me. But later he would understand and he would share that. But I know that stone used to greet me before my prophethood. Something else that was happening. He would go to bed, sleep, in the last few months again, before Jibreel would come down. He would have dreams. And what happens with those dreams? They were visions that got fulfilled exactly as he saw them. Exactly. I'll give you an example. One night he would have a dream that the uncle of his wife Khadija would come to visit them and would bring gifts and things with him. He woke up with a dream, went straight to his wife, says, I saw your uncle is coming to us today, and here's what he brought with him. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. By name. Guess what happens that day? Her uncle shows up, exactly carrying the things that he named. But not only was it that dream, many, many dreams like this. Being fulfilled completely. Visions, true visions. Now what do we know about visions? The Prophet ﷺ tells us that real visions that a believer can have is a portion or part of how many? Of prophethood. Who knows the number? What is it? 46. So if prophethood is 46 pieces, 46 blocks, one of those blocks is seeing real, having real vision. So prophets have real vision, all of them. When they dream, they have visions, they become true. So if somebody has real visions, what do they have? 1/46 of what? Prophethood. Who says that? Prophet ﷺ. So you have a quality, you're not a prophet, not a messenger. Okay, let's make sure, okay? Nobody misunderstands that. But you have a quality, a strand from the 46 strands of prophethood. It's an amazing thing. And guess what? Most people will not have that. Like it's not easy to see somebody who has real visions all the time. Very rare. I mean, I'm talking about subhanAllah. Because Allah is not going to give that strand, even though it's one, to anyone. But it's a blessing from Allah. It's a karamah from Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's a sign from Allah that, you know, you're special to me. I'm going to make you have what? You're not a prophet. I'm not going to turn you into a prophet, for sure. After Prophet Muhammad, there is no prophet. But I'll give you good visions and real visions that'll always become true. Imagine somebody just having that, like every time they have a dream, it's true. It's from Allah Azza wa Jalla. Has given them that, and somehow nobody can take them away from it. SubhanAllah, 1/46 of prophethood. Something was not happy with what I said. You know, somebody else will be like, I saw the sign. I just spoke about prophethood. The thing started flickering. I swear, I had witnesses. And a camera. SubhanAllah, people can become really quite excited about anything in life. Actually, if you come across, SubhanAllah, many of the other religions of prophets, their stories are quite flimsy. Like, I was riding on a horse and I fell down and I struck my head and suddenly I saw the light. And the person relating this, people will just come to believe it. Seriously, without any documentation, without any proof or revelation. That's it. Yeah, we heard he fell down and saw something and he changed his ways and he's a prophet. I'm not talking about one or two incidents in our history, dear brothers and sisters. Multitude, infinite number of prophets, so-called prophets that have claimed that. I just needed to stretch my right. That's why I stood up. So, I'm sorry about needing to adjust the camera. But, see, I'm not used to having the camera recorded. And you're lucky that I'm not moving around too much. So, okay, brothers and sisters, now we come to that point. So he's seeing these things, he's being greeted. The stone is talking to him. He hears these voices. Heart is ready, soul is ready. He's engaging in spiritual retreat at the age of 40. One of those nights. Remember, this is high up in the mountain, 2-3 miles outside of Mecca. Very cold. SubhanAllah. I mean, as I said, rigorous terrain. Scary. I mean, and that place is scary. It's as simple as that at night. He would be spending nights there by himself. 10 days at a time. Suddenly one of those nights. That great event that brothers and sisters we hear about, read about all the time, that I don't think we've even studied enough to understand its implications, would come to unfold itself. The time for the heavens, I want to really think about this. Who is preparing all of this? Allah. For one night. Allah knew what it was, determined the night where that first revelation is going to come, or start descending to save all of humankind. The night was approaching. SubhanAllah, day by day, it was set. That's it. For what to happen? This is an amazing thing. For the heavens to meet what? Earth. That's what it is. It was a meeting of what? The heavens and earth. It was time for who to come down? Who? Jibreel. Now something else that is interesting, I want you to think about. The Prophet ﷺ was not only being prepared spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and in his heart to just receive the Quran, but to also see who? Jibreel. I mean, again, it's not a trivial thing. We think, oh, he saw Jibreel. Yeah, he came and embraced him. Yeah, what's next? Brother, sister, he just saw a creature with 600 wings that covers the horizon. Are you understanding what I'm saying? I mean, as I said, if we saw a shadow of a thing, we jump out of our, like, I swear I saw something that moves. I might have gone mad, but I swear I saw something. Like, and you freak out. Sit at night by yourself. If there's just a sound, what happens to us? We literally, we freak out. We can lose it, brothers and sisters, if we see something freaky. I mean, watching just a horror movie, I made the mistake of doing that one time. I'll never forget, well, even scenes still stuck in my mind. That's how much I freaked out. One of them, I did not sleep for probably a week. Freaking out from being by myself. It was, I don't know, whoever showed me that movie, subhanAllah, may Allah forgive them. But I'm talking about just something, you know what I'm saying? I'm not talking stuff Allah Jibreel, it doesn't look like, you know. But we'll actually talk about his description. But you know, aside in a movie made by a human being, this is the imagination of not someone, a human being. So our imagination is limited. So even when we come up with horrific figures, still limited. Like, how much can we really make somebody looking scary? I mean, it really scares the heck out of us, but still, there's a limit to it. And imagine what it does to us. The Prophet ﷺ, brothers and sisters, once again, what was Jibreel like? 600 wings. Looking himself, not like a human being, because oftentimes when he used to come to the Prophet ﷺ, often he would show up as a man, in many of the instances. Not all the time, but sometimes he would show up as a man. He was not showing himself up as just a familiar face that would make the experience okay. And tell him, like, by the way, I'm an angel. You know? Yeah, I look normal, but I'm an angel. It's not the same. In his real form. Brothers and sisters, this is beyond the limits of our perception. Allah, out of His mercy, He gave us the ability to perceive this physical reality with the senses that we have. Those senses are not equipped to process. Remember, the word process. Things beyond the perceptible reality. Does that make sense? Colors we cannot even see beyond the, is it Roji Biv? I still remember something. Clap for me. Motivate me. I was talking about just motivation. Nobody's getting it? No, seriously. We cannot even perceive colors beyond the color spectrum. We cannot even see radio waves. We cannot see any of that. If we see, so the senses themselves are not equipped. The Prophet now was about to see something beyond the perceptible reality. His heart had to be ready, his eyes had to be ready, his mind had to be ready so that it doesn't go up. What's the word? Give it to me, don't be shy. Say it. What do you think I'm looking for? It doesn't go up. Mad, crazy. That's the type of preparation that I'm talking about. So on that night, dear brothers and sisters, he is sitting in his, subhanAllah, by himself. And by the way, one more thing about Jibreel. That night in which he was going to come, how long had it been for Jibreel since he came down? Who knows? Somebody who really is smart will tell me. Is this the first time Jibreel comes to earth? When did he used to come down?
Oh, when he was a child, right?
That's true. No, actually, not. Yeah, that's it. I'm talking about before that. Before the Prophet ﷺ. When did he come down? What's the, by the way, what's the job of Jibreel? Angels have specific jobs. Isn't it true? That's all they do. What's the job of Jibreel? Archangel Jibreel. He's the, subhanAllah, highest of the angels. What is it? Deliver message. Was it just the Quran? So what do you think? There were earlier what? Scriptures and prophets. Who used to come down to them? Guess who showed up with, to Musa? Jibreel. Isa, Jibreel, Dawood, Jibreel. So he used to come down. When was the last time he came down? How many years earlier? Come on, guys, you know dates? Dates? When is the Prophet ﷺ born?
570.
What is it? 570. When did he receive the message? 610. So how long has it been? 6 centuries. Okay, 6 centuries. 600 years since he last came down to who? Isa. So it's been a while for Jibreel, you know. SubhanAllah, where am I going with this? Can't you think, SubhanAllah, or sense a level almost of excitement that Jibreel had? Here he is, now he's delivered all these messages. He's about to deliver the final, SubhanAllah, one. Until the end of time. I mean, SubhanAllah, just thinking about it now, it's an extraordinary thing. So Jibreel was even being prepared for it, so to speak. Like, the day was coming for Jibreel, that's it, to come down with that thing. And the day was set. And it's going to be that final time when he starts coming down for the next 23 years. But it's going to be over, like that's it. And SubhanAllah, 600 years later, he would indeed be commanded by Allah to come down once again for the light of the heaven, brothers and sisters, to descend, to meet that, SubhanAllah, receptacle from earth, heaven meeting earth. Where do they meet? What's the location? Palace of, I don't know, what do they call these palaces? The Queen's Palace in London, the White House, or I don't know, the 15th story building of the Empire State. Where? Tiny one. Cave. Fitting one person. SubhanAllah, brother, there's a powerful, powerful symbolism in that as well. So the heaven is going to meet earth. The angel coming from the heaven, carrying that divine light. Scripture. The Prophet ﷺ, a man, a human being. SubhanAllah, look at the intersection. Meeting in a simple, unassuming, unglorious physical structure, place. The power is not in the appearance. But what comes out of that cave? SubhanAllah, something that changes earth. It's the power of the concept. That's what I'm trying to get to. Don't be fooled, brothers and sisters, by appearances. But even appearances of human beings. The structure, even our masajid, sometimes we're so into the looks of things, right? The appearance, but is that place producing men and women who can really change their communities, empower, change earth? Or is it just the glorious lights, the good smell? No, inshallah, we want the good smell to be there. But scratch that. But I'm just saying, the expensive appearances without any essence. Islam, by the way, is about both, essence and form. But if essence is missing, there's nothing. Even when we interact, what's the essence? Look at the essence of behavior in Islam. What is it? Key feature, quality. What is it called? What was the essence of the Prophet ﷺ in his behavior? One word, one quality. What is it called? Rahmah, mercy. It's a defining ethos. The essence, beauty. Islam is all beauty, really. It's the essence. It's the spirit. So if something you see in our behavior that lacks that essence, that beauty, that mercy, guess what? It's a shell. It's empty, it's meaningless, it's actually against Islamic teachings. That cave, brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, it didn't matter, it was not glamorous, the essence. Here comes the message, and it will be brought out of that cave, subhanAllah. The Prophet ﷺ tells us a story, and he says, as I was engaged in my contemplation, suddenly, this creature, he didn't know, but did he know it was an angel? Suddenly he saw the angel in his real form. And the angel came to him. He says, came to me. And imagine the Prophet ﷺ now, his reaction, subhanAllah, like, I really want you, not only today, I mean, we have 20 minutes to go, 25, but go back and, I want you to dissect that story. Think of each element with it as it moves. How the Prophet ﷺ was reacting. I just seen a creature, 600 wings, subhanAllah, in the darkness of the night, on a mountain, in a cave. Here I am, and I'm already absorbed in contemplation. You know when you're so absorbed into something and somebody just makes a sound? You just jump out of your chair, and you probably get angry. Suddenly sees that thing, and it's coming towards him, and he says, and then it grabs him. That creature grabbed me. And subhanAllah, once again, what symbolism do you derive from this? Now, it could have been what? I wanted to conceive of other possibilities. Allah wanted to deliver the Quran, message to the Prophet ﷺ. What's the easiest way to do it? Muhammad, the past 4 years I've been preparing you. You are what? You're the Prophet, right? And here I am, my name is Jibreel. I come from the heavens. I come to the prophets before you. You know, the Torah and the Injil, I delivered them to Musa, Isa. I know them all, I've met them all. You are the last prophet, okay? So I'm going to give you the first verse. Read behind it. Iqra. Bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. I really wanted to conceive of the simplest way to do this. Isn't it? Tell me I'm a prophet. You've been being prepared. I'm Jibreel. It's over. Here are the verses. Please also memorize them. And when you go down, have somebody else write them to preserve them. Isn't it true? I mean, seriously, I'm talking about simplicity here. How would you, if you were to do this event, how would you do it? Would you choose the cave also? Would you rather choose maybe in his home, in case he's at least sitting comfortably, right? Just go to him, you know, and just talk to him. That could have been also an arrangement of Allah, but Allah didn't arrange it. That's the arrangement of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He says He would grab me. Not just simply, hey, Muhammad, you're the Prophet. No. Not saying any of this. He had no idea it was an angel. He had no idea of anything. And all that he says to me is what? Iqra. First word. No salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. I'm about to tell you something. Iqra. No, Iqra. Brothers, this is the first command of Allah to this Prophet. And i.e. all of us, recite. There's a lot to the word recite. And perhaps we'll spend, inshallah, next. I mean, you could spend the whole session on this word. What is the implications of that word? It's not read. That's a it's an injustice to the word. It has layers and layers. It's the reading, sure. It's a recitation. Quran, the words of Allah are to be proclaimed, recited, proclaimed, chanted, contemplated upon, read. And not only beyond even the words of Allah, we'll talk about the implications of the word. And he says to me, read or recite. What does the Prophet say? Imagine him being grabbed now. He says, and he grabbed me until the point of exhaustion. And imagine the Prophet being grabbed. This is by a foreign creature that had that scary look. He has no idea who he is, and he's commanding to say, read. What did the Prophet do? Did he read or write? Remember, he never recited. He never read. So what does he say? He said, so I responded, I am not a reciter. Ma ana biqari. I've never recited in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. I cannot even read. And imagine him wondering, like, what does he ask me to even read? So I'm not a reader, reciter, and I don't know what he wants me to read. And he says he lets me go, and then grabs me again. Further emphasis. Read. I mean, wallahi, brothers and sisters, it's a scary moment. I mean, think about somebody who's coming up to you, staring at you, right? Frowning in your face, grabbing you from your shirt, and telling you, move. I mean, what will happen? You'll freak out. You'll probably push back or do something. I mean, you will get into a fight or flight, what is it called? Fight or flight mode? Maybe fight or maybe flight. But you'll do one of them. You'll not be your normal person in your normal mental, emotional state. So he says, he grabs me again and says, read, recite. And I said, I'm not a reciter. Letting me go. Imagine the Prophet said when he was let go, just thinking, oh my goodness, like he's not stopping, you know? And he would grab me a third time, saying, read, commanding, read. Imagine just hearing the voice. What did the voice of Jibreel sound like? No, this is not a human voice. If his size would fill the heavens, everywhere he looked, he was there. How did even that embrace feel? He says he held me the third time until I felt like, you know, full exhaustion, as if I'm losing my ability to breathe. It was not just, hey, hello, little hug and embrace. It was tight embrace. Recite. And brothers and sisters, before I conclude this episode, again, why the embrace? SubhanAllah. Remember when I spoke Jibreel coming from the heavens? The heavens were going to meet earth to deliver the light of Allah and His revelation. The recipient, the heart of the man, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that cave, in that simple place. The light are to me what has to happen. It's symbolic. Powerful embrace. Now, here it is. You can even feel the warmth in it. Powerful embrace for, as if subhanAllah, like, it's an amazing thing to think of all the, again, the symbolism of it, even the transmission happening even with the souls, right? Now, it's not just, because when somebody really hugs you, and it's a warm hug, I'm not talking about the hug of Jibreel, just a normal person, how do you feel? It feels good. Without them saying, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? How does it feel? And then they look at you and they're smiling. When you sense that, don't you in your soul sense that warmth? Doesn't something get transmitted to your heart? An emotion that you cannot translate into words? Isn't that true? That's why we're, subhanAllah, warmth is so important, brothers and sisters. You can speak volumes about a relationship with somebody and express that love for them in perhaps a powerful embrace that really shows shows them how much you love them. And it will mean the world to them, right? As opposed to something cold shoulder, or, little, barely I want to touch you, you know it, you sense it, you know it's fake, right? Like a bad handshake, and I hate it when men have bad handshakes. They're like, really, brothers, don't ever do that. Full handshake. So I always ask for a good handshake. Sister Rania and her father, Brother Majid, gives the most powerful handshake to the point where your hand aches. Like, Brother Majid, I ask for a good handshake, but don't kill me. MashaAllah, no, he's natural like this. I love his handshake. I don't know if you know him, or you met him, but you feel the warmth in it. Like, it's a serious man handshake. Now, please don't go kill each other now, because I said this. But the embrace, brothers and sisters, was powerfully symbolic of that intersection, the meeting of heaven and earth. It had to be intense. Because what? What was delivered is intense. It was serious. That's why all of these conditions, that's why it wasn't conceived in the other easy way. Because it was so serious. And he said in the third time, recite. And he said, I'm not a reciter. And then at that point he says to me, اقرأ. And now he tells me, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Once again, I want you to picture the Prophet, read, and suddenly he hears, proclaim, recite in the name of who? He is now hearing Jibreel say the words, recite in the name of your Lord and nurturer. اقرأ بسم ربك, in his name. Who's that Lord? Imagine him just hearing the words. الذي خلق, the one who created. He was thinking about the Creator all these years. Who created? خلق الإنسان من علق. He who created man out of a mere congealed clot, blood, right? Clot of blood. اقرأ وربك الأكرم. Read and continues to emphasize, recite. And he is indeed the most bountiful, the most generous. Al-Akram, الذي علم بالقلم. He who taught with what? The pen. Read first, pen. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Taught man that which he knew not. He says he departed. We'll talk more about these. As I said, I'm not going to finish talking about just that verse. SubhanAllah. So, few reflections. What did you notice in what he told him? What did you expect? Again, assume if you didn't know about the story, what should you have expected that he would tell him? I said that, I gave it to you. That you're what? You're the Prophet. This is Islam. Right? It's the Quran, and here the first verse. It's talking about, reciting and reading. And there's your Lord, Allah Azza wa Jal. He's the Akram, الذي علم بالقلم, taught man, which he knew not. Inshallah, I'll come to you with the next lesson next time. But subhanAllah, he didn't tell him what? Any of this. Did he tell him he's a prophet? No. Notice, did he tell him I'm Jibreel, the angel? He didn't identify himself. He didn't identify what he gave him. He didn't tell him what he should expect. He didn't even tell him you're a prophet. And left. Do you wonder about that, by the way? And it's not like Jibreel, by the way, came the following night. It was going to be days before he comes back. Now, what do you think Muhammad would be thinking about? What's the state of a mind of somebody who shook you up, embraced you, hugged you, squeezed you so hard until you almost suffocated 3 times, commanding you with something you have no idea about that you cannot even do to read, then tells you about this Lord that he taught, and then leaves you. and it's dark, it's up there about an hour and a half, there's no one to talk to and say, what just happened? Imagine his condition, dear brothers and sisters. Just a human being. Nonetheless, prepared by Allah. What happens to him, he says? He freaks out. He's terrified. Normally. Terrified. Though he was prepared for seeing Jibreel, Allah prepared his vision and heart for the encounter. Another human being would have crumbled like a mountain. Probably deafened completely, jolted into death. Right away, by just the sight. He still, remained alive, clearly. But subhanAllah, brothers, and he was not given the answers of anything. He says, I ran down the mountain shivering. He became even extra cold. He was so terrified that he actually started feeling more cold and shivering, literally. And imagine, brothers and sisters, it wasn't 5 minutes to get home. You know when you need to go home and you really need to, there's something critical, like me putting my kids to sleep at 7:30 today. 6:30 I have to leave. So, not that important, but something you really need to go home, you're physically tired, you really need to see somebody who can tell you, like, come here, let me give you a hug, You know what I'm talking about? You really need, that's it, I can't wait an hour. And you're real, brother, sister, Prophet Muhammad had to descend that mountain. It wasn't like 5-minute descent. As I said, for a normal human being, an hour and a half. Right? I don't know how long it took the Prophet in the middle of the night, having to come down in that state of fear, of confusion, shivering, running down until he goes back where? And there's another 2-3 miles to travel to go back to his home in Mecca. Took time. Imagine him just running with these emotions to who? Who is he running to? Where? Where did he go? What is that? Home, right? SubhanAllah. Home is called in Arabic language sakan. Settlement. It's the place that you feel sheltered. Isn't it true? That's what sakan means. It's a place where you feel safe. It's a place where you feel like, you know what? I don't feel like wearing this shirt. I want to put on anything. A place where you feel you can put your feet on the couch, right? And cross them and do all kinds of things and nobody would, especially if you're by yourself. It's your home. Even the people of your home, they're used to you. You're used to them. It feels comfortable. You do things in your home you can never do anywhere else, and you feel good about it. That you can go back to it as a retreat. It's called sakan, because it settles you. Settle. Sakan means to calm something down. It calms you down. Too bad that we have homes that disturb, and that we run away from. That's not what sakan is. SubhanAllah, even the Arabic word suggests what a home should have. That if you yourself as a member of the house are not providing that tranquility and settlement for the members of the home, you've not built a home. You've destroyed the purpose of the settlement. And we should feel safe in our homes, dear brothers and sisters. And if we are not, let's build homes with our spouses that have settlement. So where else do you find the word sakan in Quran? With spouses. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. SubhanAllah. I just talked about sakan in Arabic language referring to a home. When Allah says, I created you from you a spouse, so that you settle in with. Settle. You find that settlement. You find the comfort, the refuge. You retreat to them. That's a real spouse. So where did the Prophet go? Dual sakan. He went back first to what? His what? Home. Sakan. But is it the shell? It's not. Who was in that home? To find what? The sakan. So when he freaked out, dear brothers and sisters, in the most difficult state of his life, never experienced before, he didn't go to a relative or a friend. And a lot of us run away from family and probably call a friend. Because you might find that sakan with them. Who was his sakan? His wife. SubhanAllah. I mean, that has me standing, wallah, every time to think about it. How incredible Khadija was. Like a mountain of support and emotion, of assurance, of refuge. She's like a home for him. A man, I mean, we think men are, SubhanAllah, Prophet ﷺ, we're talking about now regular people. Despite all, the whatever, the shouting and the muscles and the appearance of whatever being, I don't know, taking on anything, men are similarly weak and need of a sakan, of settlement, of the spouse can give things to the man that he will never find anywhere else and vice versa. SubhanAllah. But it's sad, as I said, when we don't find it with each other as spouses. It's tragic. We've just defeated the purpose of a home, of a marriage. Second, he expects it to find it with Khadija. In state of total confusion, running down his heart. You can hear his heart saying, where's my home? Right? Where's Khadija? SubhanAllah. I mean, it's not in a hadith, but I can hear his voice saying that. Indeed, he would rush to his home. No matter, Allah knows how much time it took him, and finally would get into the house. And what does he say? SubhanAllah. Right away, cover me, cover me. Cover me. He's shivering. He's asking who? Again, his wife. I want you to think about this now, brothers and sisters. Here's Khadija in her home. She has not seen Jibreel. She is used to the Prophet ﷺ do this with several years, spending time in that cave. And something unusual that night happens. She has no idea what it is. Somebody just jumps, barges into the house. Her husband, she sees Muhammad. And imagine her seeing him in that state. And he's saying, cover me, shivering. What did she say? What do you expect a normal human being to do? SubhanAllah. She didn't question any of this. She immediately did what, though? First thing, instinct. She's like, what are you talking about? What? It's cover me? I mean, out of all things, right? Cover me? I mean, maybe hide me, maybe cover me? She would cover me without questioning or asking. Look at the good, again, a good spouse, an understanding friend, companion. Didn't question this. This is somebody I know, I love, I adore, I trust. I'm not going to even in this moment that appears strange and confusing. Let me meet his need. That's where her focus was. Meeting the need of my companion, my husband, covered him. And she indeed, dear brothers and sisters, covers the Prophet ﷺ. And she says next, after fulfilling the need, what does she say? مالك يا ابن العم. What happened with you, O cousin? And by the way, this is a reference, even in Arabic culture, spouses refer to each other as cousin. Interesting. Actually, or ibn ammi. There are a lot of ways to refer to it. They were probably cousins themselves, but that's also a way of referring to husband and wife. So she's asking, what happened to you? What went wrong? You know what he says next? لَقَدْ خَشِيتُ عَنْ نَفْسِي. I fear for myself. So think of it, brothers and sisters. He had no idea he was a prophet. We described the experience. He has no answers to what happened. It was something extraordinary, not normal. So he says, I'm afraid for myself. And I'm asking you here, he didn't say what. What is he afraid of? Well, no, what is he fearful of? He says, I'm afraid for myself. For what? What do you think? Let's dissect once again, the statements, the experiences that have happened. Inshallah, we'll take 5 minutes and conclude, and we'll resume this next time. What do you think? I fear for myself. Fear for what? What do you think? Think with me, put yourself in his shoes. Fearing what? So, as I said, he didn't know, had no idea what that was about. It could have been what? Does he know about angels? So he might have perceived it as well. It could have been just like a ghost, a spirit, something. So it could have been something good or bad. It could have been something bad. I've just been haunted by something. He had no idea if it's good or bad, or if it's something terrible that it just happened. And he thought he had gone what? Mad. Brother says, this is serious. The Prophet ﷺ thought he had gone mad. Because this was not normal.